All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing the newest Richard Sharpe book, Sharpe's Command by Bernard Cornwell. I think there's probably 23 or 24 some odd novels in the Sharpe's Rifles series. I've got my entire Bernard Cornwell book collection over here. In fact, it takes almost 1.5 shelves. There's part of the collection, and then the other part of the collection over here. But anyway, he's written a lot of books in the Richard Sharpe Rifles series. And who's Richard Sharpe and the Sharpe Rifles? Richard Sharpe is a British soldier in the Napoleonic wartime era, and he goes through a lot of adventures. This book, Sharpe's Command, just so you know, it's even though it's the latest book that just came out, it fits kind of in the middle of the series between Sharpe's company and Sharpe's sword. This one is set in May of 1812. I think Sharpe's company was set in April of 1812, and Sharpe's sword was set in June of 1812. This one falls in the middle, falls between those two books. So even though it's the latest entry into the series, it actually chronologically kind of fits in the middle of the series. So anyway, let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I guess the cover is decent, considering it's just a bunch of Photoshop stuffed. You know, it's just a Photoshop bird, a Photoshop sword, a Photoshop seascape, Photoshop Richard Sharpe. It's all right. It's okay. There's better covers in the world. Now, I do have quite a few of my Bernard Cornwell books signed by the author, because, and you know I love showing off my signed book collections. So, you know, this is Sharpe's Tiger, book #1 in the series. Chronologically, book #1. So if you want to start the series, start with Sharpe's Tiger. But anyway, what is Sharpe's Command about? It's kind of about Sharpe going to defend a bridge. Or destroy a bridge, I mean. There's a nice little map of the portions of Spain that this thing takes place in. I'll read the jacket copy. It's just a couple paragraphs. Then I'll get into my thoughts on the book. So, if any man can do the impossible, it is Richard Sharpe. And the impossible is exactly what the formidable Major Sharpe is asked to do when he's dispatched on an undercover mission behind enemy lines deep in the Spanish countryside. For a remote village is about to become the center of a battle for the future of Europe. Sitting high above the Almarez Bridge, it is the last link between two French armies, one in the north, the other in the south, and if they meet, the British are doomed. Only Sharpe's small group of men, with their cunning and courage to rely on, stand in their way, but they're rapidly outnumbered. Enemies are hiding in plain sight, and time is running out. So, this is Richard Sharpe's Command, the battle for the bridge at Almaraz in Spain. And Sharpe gets dispatched to this bridge. As soon as he gets to it, well, he doesn't get dispatched right to the bridge. He gets dispatched sort of near the bridge, where he meets up with kind of a guy. It's an ally, but not really an ally. The guy's name is El Hero, and he's there to help Richard Sharpe on his mission. But he's kind of a douchebag. He kind of bosses Richard Sharpe around, and he's not really, you know that this guy is not a good soldier, not a good commander, and Richard Sharpe susses this out immediately. Richard Sharpe grew up the hard way. He was an orphan boy. He joined the army as a lowly He wasn't officer. I mean, and back in British society, the people that were commanding officers and the superiors were all people that had money, came from wealthy families, came from nobility. Those were the leaders of the army. And this is what Richard Sharpe has faced his whole career is he's always being led by dudes that aren't really that battle tested, but since their daddy was a nobleman, they of course are now in charge of the regiment and they have no clue. And El Hero seems to be one of these guys, and he throws it into Richard Sharpe's face like, hey, I am born of kings. How dare you, someone who was born in the gutters and rose up through the ranks the hard way, how dare you tell me how to run this battle that's going to take place over this bridge? And there's a lot of sabotage and a lot of betrayal, and Richard Sharpe is always at odds with this guy. And we get to see Richard Sharpe's girlfriend make a reappearance in this book. She is also a pretty formidable fighter and leader of men herself, and which is why Richard Sharpe is drawn to her. And they have a little daughter together. And Richard Sharpe doesn't see them that often because he's always off campaigning in different parts of the war. And this part of the war is in the middle of Spain. I like reading these books because you get a flavor for what the time was like. And Bernard Cornwell is very great at putting you in to that time period of 1812, May of 1812 to be specific, in the middle of Spain, in a fight over a bridge between the French and the English and the Spanish, and all of the stuff that goes on, and we've got Richard Sharpe's cast of characters, the guys that have followed him through all of these different adventures that he's had. And they're all competent riflemen, and he trusts them, and they always have his back and he has theirs. That's kind of the heart and soul of this series, is Richard Sharpe himself, plus the handful of other guys in his rifle company that we've gotten to know over the course of some 25 odd books. Anyway, this is a great entry into the series. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Bernard Cornwell is one of my favorite writers, probably my favorite historical writer. Him and Ken Follett and a few others. But anyway, there it is for Sharpe's Command.